Hello, I'm Robert Simmons. I'm the author of the Book of Stones, Moldavite Starborn Stones of Transformation, and the upcoming book, The Alchemy of Stones. And I'm making this video today. We're just getting into the fourth week in March of 2020, and I'm doing this video to talk about what we're collectively going through in the world right now and how we can work with stones for spiritual support during this time and what the opportunities of this time spiritually may be. If you've been seeing any of the videos I've done this year, you would know that I have been talking a lot about the alchemy of stones. And in that context, what I've been saying is that the worldview of ancient alchemy fits very well with the kind of work that metaphysically oriented people are doing with stones for self-healing and expansion of awareness and transformation. And I've been doing the same kind of work myself for about 34 years now, and I'm highly enthusiastic about it still. Ever since I woke up to being able to feel stone energies myself, which I know many or most of you who are watching this can also do, it has been something that has connected me spiritually, I feel, to the earth in a way that is unique and really important in my life. So I think that during times when we're being challenged on many levels and when old patterns of life are breaking down and new patterns are not yet really understood or known, there's a sort of it's a kind of a liminal moment, it's a threshold moment when the very uncertainty of everything provides us opportunities to see and co-create some new and better patterns. And I'm talking about this, on the spiritual level and the soul level. But I do think that those things, as many of you would probably agree, have an impact on our life in the world too. So one thing I want to say is because of the pandemic, the intensive workshop that I've been talking about in my other videos this year, the Alchemy of Stones Intensive in Vermont, which was scheduled for June 11th to the 14th. It's canceled now. It has to be because of the virus. And I think it's wise to do that because the contagiousness of this is obviously very high, and we want to take care of ourselves and all the people who would be coming together for this event. So my absolute intention is to reschedule it for another time, and when we see the way things start shaking out or start resolving over the next months, then I'll be talking about it again, and I'll be inviting people to come again, and my own enthusiasm for presenting this workshop will kind of have to be held, in limbo for a while, but I promise you it will not diminish. The book, The Alchemy of Stones, that goes with and is sort of the text of all that I'm was presenting this coming June and will be in the rest of my work for several years, I think, is still being published. It's also being delayed probably a couple of months because of the same thing, because printers and warehouses and other places that have to do with production of the book are all facing the same crisis we all are, and a lot of them are not staying open, or they're staying open less. So, we have to be patient, and we have to take care of ourselves and each other, and I think that part is actually quite a good opportunity and part of the general overriding opportunity spiritually that this time presents us with. So, that's sort of introductory. Another thing I'm going to talk about today is what we're collectively going through and how we can work with stones to aid us in the process and the changes that we're undergoing. And nobody has a clear picture of what the changes are going to be like yet. And that's part of what I would view as being on the threshold of initiation. So, I'll get into all that. I'm going to talk also a bit later about the stones that I'm using myself for spiritual support during the time of the pandemic, to strengthen my subtle body and just keep my psyche as healthy as I can. And I'll recommend those to people who are interested in them. So that's coming a little bit further down. I've got notes today that I'm looking at because I've got a lot of things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to say that presenting a video in which I say that this situation offers us an opportunity is being said in the context of remembering the very real pain and difficulty and suffering and anxiety and even death that is a part of the viral pandemic that we're in the middle of in the world right now. Those things are all very genuine, and we have to think with compassion about other people, and we have to, I think, attend to our own needs and the needs of our loved ones as well as we possibly can. So I view with compassion, and I'm sure you all do too, what's happening to people who are ill and their families. And view with concern, as I'm sure you do, the possibility that the pandemic will get larger and more people suffer from that. So we all know this, but having said that, I want to say that everything I'm talking about in regard to stones is in that context. We need to take the crisis seriously. Even though I'm going to be talking about stones that provide spiritual support, in my view, I don't mean to say that stones make you immune or will cure this virus or any illness on the physical level. So I'm being responsible here, and I'm glad I am. Now, having said all that about the worldwide crisis, I've been trying to think about what is the spiritual or soul level meaning of what is happening now. And I don't pretend to have the answer, but I am putting my attention on trying to understand it that way. Because in the alchemical worldview, which I embrace in my writing and in my work and in my teaching, the center of our consciousness is a little different than what the everyday consensus reality center of consciousness is like. And what I mean by that is a person who has the alchemical worldview will not center themselves completely in the physical world, and they won't center themselves completely in the spiritual world. In the physical world, if that's all that you're thinking about and that's all you believe in, then materialism becomes your default setting as far as what your worldview is. And there is a lot of emptiness in that worldview and doesn't hold a lot of spiritual promise for anyone. At the same time, if we're wholly spiritual and disregard physical life, we can be naive and ungrounded. So the middle ground is the ground that Carl Jung recommended and his disciple Marie-Louise von Franz used to talk about. And what they said is that a person who is individuated, which is another word for whole in the way that Jung talked about human psychology, is someone whose consciousness is neither centered fully in the spiritual realm or in the physical realm, but in the imaginal realm, which includes both of them. And so an individuated or whole person would view the world through the lens of imagination to discern the meaning that's hidden in the daily life events in the physical world. So it's the same thing we do when we consult oracles like the I Ching or the Tarot cards. We're trying to understand what symbolically what is going on in our outer life. So that's what this is in terms of trying to understand what's going on with this pandemic and what the spiritual meaning or the soul meaning of it may be, and is there a reason for this? Not so much a reason, but is there an aspect of this that is a little bit deeper and more meaningful than it might seem? So these are my guesses about it right now. One of the things I've noticed as I look at this is the similarities of what we're collectively experiencing to what people experience individually when they go through spiritual initiations. Initiations were done in ritual in many cultures for thousands of years, and they were created for the purpose of bringing people through psychological growth passages in which they had to transcend their old way of being and expand themselves to a greater way of being. So one of the easiest ones to talk about is the initiation from childhood to adulthood. And that is the most, as far as I know, the most common one that was practiced in many cultures. So in those initiations, there are several things that are kind of part of them universally that I think have their similarities to what's going on collectively. So one of them is that initiation takes one away from one's normal life. In tribal initiations, the young people were taken away from their families, and they were in the care and in the presence of the initiators for some period of time before the actual rituals happened. And this disoriented them. This put them in a place of, we don't know quite what's going on. We don't really know who these people are very well. It's in a place of uncertainty. And what that does is dislodge your everyday interpretation of reality. And that's important if you're going to be able to embrace something new. The breakdown of what we thought was rock solid in the past needs to occur, or an initiation can't happen, because we won't let go of our old way of seeing things long enough to allow the new way to dawn on us. So I see this, this was done purposely in tribal initiations, and I think it's happening naturally and collectively right now on a scale that, as far as I know, is pretty new. And so the second thing I would say about it is initiation involves a confrontation with fear. And again, this has to do with dislodging the young person in the tribal initiation's embrace of a kind of taking for granted of the way life is. And again, that has to happen before a person can, make the leap between childhood and initiation into adulthood. So obviously, right now, we're all looking at fear. We're looking at our anxieties that build up, and they have very real reasons to be building up. I wouldn't tell anybody that it's wrong to feel anxiety, fear, concern, stress. I think all those things are a part of what's happening, and we need to acknowledge it and let ourselves know what we're feeling. Pushing those things down into the basement of our psyche isn't helpful. So confrontation with fear without falling into panic was essential for people going through these initiations I'm talking about in cultures around the world. If the initiate showed panic, they were basically kind of sent home and or put to the back of the line and said, well, you're not ready for this yet. Being able to hold the energy that is generated by fear and anxiety without giving in to panic is a really important aspect of the strength that we need in order to face transformational times, whether they are what we're having now or whether they're an individual's spiritual initiation. So I see that, it's a key element of both situations. The third one is the felt presence of death. In the initiations that are tribal that I'm talking about, there was the feeling, in fact, some rituals even would do things like temporarily or ritually bury the person or convince the person that they were in the underworld where they were surrounded by the dead. But the presence of death is a symbol that triggers the transformational process in these cultural initiations, because it is, if you're going to transcend and become and succeed in the metamorphosis that is asked of us individually or collectively, then the energy of the confrontation with the possibility of death or the reality of it is an aspect that's classically been a part of spiritual initiations. So obviously we're looking at that collectively too. And what I'm saying is that the psyche of humanity as a whole may have the opportunity to move through this, and we may actually be going through a kind of caterpillar to butterfly transformation, as dark as it may look right now. The caterpillar is a good example of this, because in the caterpillar's initiation, metamorphosis, it overconsumes for a long time, gets really fat, just like materialistic culture has done collectively around the world. It enters into a chaotic state when it goes into the pupa stage, and its whole being of the caterpillar becomes just a black goo that doesn't seem to have any structure. And the dissolving of structures in our collective world is seemingly going on rather rapidly right now. And during that time of chaos and pupation, in the caterpillar, there are cells that are called, interestingly enough, imaginal cells that begin to bring about the pattern of the new being that the caterpillar will become. And from what I've read, it's actually interesting too that the caterpillar and the butterfly have different sets of DNA. It is in a sense the same creature, because it's the life cycle from egg to butterfly of one insect, but the DNA that is the butterfly's DNA is different from what it was when it was a caterpillar. So that's why they call it metamorphosis. So here we are collectively looking at all this, and we see that we might be in that stage of chaos, that pupation stage, where we've moved from the consumption into the state of everything seems to be breaking down and be chaotic. And what we're looking for now is seeds of order to build a new self around, both individually and potentially collectively. At least that's how I'm imagining it. So what comes next? In alchemy, holding the tension between opposite polarities is a very key, an important thing to do. And this is something that Jung also said. Jung believed that it was good to never be one-sided. So he famously, when someone would come to his door and say, I've just been promoted, I got a raise, he would say, oh, my dear fellow, come in, we'll have some wine, we'll get through this difficulty together. And when someone would say something like, my partner's left me, I'm ill, I've lost my job, or some such thing as that, Jung would say, let's celebrate, come on in, we'll open some wine. This means something good will be right on the heels of this. So he was a very astute observer of psychological processes, and I respect his work a very great deal. And I think that his way of imagining what happens in the psyche is useful to us. So, holding the tension between opposites was a key in alchemy. They called it they showed it in alchemical drawings as the sun and moon, as light and darkness, as the intertwining of darkness and light and all different sorts of polarities. Angels and demons, all kinds of things like that. But the point was to show the initiate in alchemy that holding the tension between opposites was necessary in order to generate the energy of transformation that would take everything to a new level. So right now, collectively, we're in a place where the polarity of anxiety and fear is present, and I am myself in carrying the intention of holding the other polarity of trust and of looking inward for the light. And of course, along with trust and looking inward is compassion and looking outward and offering whatever light I have to give. Even this little video is an attempt to do that. So there's a good little poem I'm going to say to you in a minute about this holding the tension and how it works for the good of both the human being and the divine. But the other thing I'll say before I do is Jung said that holding these tensions activated something in the psyche called the transcendent function. And that just means what it sounds like. There's a function in the psyche where when the polarity tension becomes highly charged, something can suddenly happen where the energy tips that critical point and we go up to a higher level of awareness that encompasses all that we were holding in that tension. Okay. So I'll say the poem for you now. This is a poem by Rainer Maria Rilke, and it is called The Winged Energy of Delight. The winged energy of delight, so like the butterfly again. And Rilke says, just as the winged energy of delight carried you over many chasms early on, now raise the daringly imagined arch, holding up the astounding bridges. Miracle does not lie only in the amazing living through and defeat of danger. Miracle becomes miracle in the clear achievement that is earned. To work with things is not hubris when building the association beyond words. Denser and denser the pattern becomes. Being carried along is not enough. Take your well-disciplined strengths and stretch them between two opposing poles, because inside human beings is where God learns. So I love that poem, and I'll just give you a quick interpretation because not everybody digests poetry instantly. The winged energy of delight is our enthusiasm for our life, our enthusiasm for our physical life and our life in the world. The winged energy of delight is what carries us through our childhood and through our young adulthood. At least that's what Rilke is saying. So he's saying we come into life with a lot of zest and a lot of energy, as Wordsworth said, trailing clouds of glory from heaven, which was our home. And that winged energy can carry us through a lot of things and a lot of initiations, or just the initiations life gives us as we grow. But he says that when you become an adult, you're expected, and it's important for us, you, me, to learn to raise the arch ourselves that connects the polarities, connects across the chasm between opposites. He says to work with things is not hubris, and what he means is that we can be co-creative with the divine, and it is not presumptuous of human beings to try. It's what we're asked to do. It's what we're called to do. And as we build the association beyond words, as he said, he's talking about seeing things symbolically, seeing the meaning that underlies the reality around us, which is what I was speaking of before. So when we're building the association beyond words, the pattern of meaning that we discern in the world becomes denser and denser, and we see that the world is not only containing meaning, the world is made of meaning. So denser and denser the pattern becomes, and that intensification of density is also what Jung was talking about the increasing tension between opposite polarities. You can feel it in that denser and denser the pattern becomes. Being carried along, as we were when we were young, is not enough. He says that as adult human beings who have a responsibility and an opportunity to co-create with the divine, we need to develop strengths. And strengths have to do with psychological strengths and spiritual strengths and soul strength. Take your well-disciplined strengths and stretch them between two opposing poles. Why? Why do we go to all that effort? Not only for ourselves, maybe not even primarily for ourselves. Rilke says, because inside human beings is where God learns. So that's a good enough reason to make the effort, right? If that's true, that human beings are the place where God learns, it's worth trying. So now, try to put all that in a package here. What I'm saying is, we have this crisis in the world, which is the intensification of many different tensions that we may hold as polarities. And to hold tension doesn't mean to be tense. It means to be calm in the face of what might otherwise make us tense or make us frightened. To hold our calm is to hold the tension. So when we do this, the energy of the time, whether it's in time of individual initiation or of collective initiation, the energy of the time as we hold it in our heart center with our calmness by calling on the depths of spirit that are centered there, the energy is able to build up and the pattern becomes denser and denser as we see it. And then the transcendent function occurs. And that's where inside a human being, or maybe inside all of us human beings right now, that's where God learns. Now, what does that mean? You know, from the alchemical point of view, we're talking about Sophia, who is the soul of the world. The goal of alchemy was the discovery, and not just the discovery, the creation, the building of the philosopher's stone. And a philosopher, the word philosopher contains the word philo and Sophia. Philo means love. Sophia is wisdom, or the soul of the world. A philosopher is a lover of the soul of the world. So the stone of the philosophers, the stone of the ones who love the soul of the world, is what alchemy sought to create. And that's what we actually are doing in our work with stones, when we work with stone energies, I believe. That is at least the highest accomplishment we can hope for in that work. So, the alchemists believed that Sophia was asleep in matter, that in order for the world to be full of the wisdom that it has, and full of the beauty and harmony that we know here, wisdom has to be present and is present in every particle of matter. But in the mythology of the alchemists, which came originally from the Gnostics, the idea was that the divine feminine being or goddess, who is wisdom, fell from heaven into matter, descended through compassion into every particle of the world, including the stones. And she sleeps there until co-creative action with human beings helps her to realize her yearning to awaken and fully inhabit and be present as the awakened divine in every particle of matter in the world. That's what the alchemists called the magnum opus, or the great work. And they believed that when they fully did the great work and it was achieved, this was the redemption of the universe. So some of my other heroes have said that even though the earth is a speck of dust amidst infinite stars and planets, the spiritual forces, the patterns of meaning with which the universe's evolution, awakening, and redemption are made of, are concentrated here. And we as individual beings here are able to begin to imagine and comprehend this idea. We then have the opportunity to work with it. And as the alchemists and the Gnostics believed, help Sophia awaken in matter. Now, how do we do that? Well, I believe that one path to this is our meditation, our meditative and inner work with the stones and regarding them as beings and engaging the stone beings in a give and take relationship, a co-creative relationship. So when I meditate with the stone, which is Rose Sophia, that's my favorite stone for working directly with the consciousness of Sophia. I hold the stone to my heart. I inhale, and in every inhalation I invite the stone into my heart. And I imagine it there. I picture the image of this very stone there inside my heart. And as I exhale, I offer my friendship, my love, my offer of co-creative partnership to the being of this stone or any stone that I work with. And through the stone, because I believe that the stones as beings are emanations or individualizations of different aspects of the soul of the world. So when I work through them, I'm also offering love, partnership, co-creative unity with Sophia. And I'm asking for that too. I'm inviting it when I inhale. So with every breath, there's this circulation that we engage with. And we do it as an offer and an invitation on our part. And the amazing thing is that we're met. We're met with the energy of the being of the stone. And when we feel what we call stone energy, what I think we're feeling is the presence and the engagement in relationship with that being. As I sometimes say, in order for a rainbow to exist, there needs to be three things. There needs to be rain in the air, there needs to be sunlight at the correct angle, and there needs to be somebody there to see it. Because a rainbow is actually an event in consciousness, even though it looks like it's an event in the outer world. Because without eyes in the right place to see it and be aware of it, there's a critical component that's just as important as the rain or the sunlight. There's no rainbow without all three. So my analogy here is that the stone energy we experience, the condition for that to happen is the stone and its spiritual aspect, the stone being, ourselves, our physical selves, and our spiritual or soulful aspect of our being. And the energy is the third thing, and that is created, just like the rainbow is, through the combined or the relationship between ourselves and the stone. So it's kind of cool because I think people generally would view stone energy as something that's just there. And I'd say it's like the rainbow, it's potentially there. And when we turn our attention to it, what we then feel is something that has been called into being through the intention of our own consciousness and the consciousness that dwells spiritually within and standing behind the stone. So I hope this is making sense to you. You know, the reason I go into all this is, and how it relates to the pandemic and the spiritual initiation and all the things that I sort of introduced at the beginning, is that during this time, a few things I've noticed. One thing is this feeling of things being kind of surreal, and my friends have said that to me too. And that surreal feeling, I believe, is what is on the liminal threshold of initiation. Liminal just means threshold. Before you go through the doorway and are initiated, there is this feeling of surreality, because the old reality that was solid, it doesn't seem to be so solid anymore. The new world, or the new self that's on the other side of the initiatory doorway, hasn't formed yet. It's like that black goo thing in the caterpillar. So the liminal stage, the threshold of initiation, has this feeling of being surreal. And I think that there are many of us who sense, because of how so many things that seemed like structures we could take for granted are falling, there's a surreal quality. So I want to say, don't let it frighten you too much. See it as, at least consider seeing it as, this initiatory threshold. Now, the big surprise that happened to me during this surreal time, during this time when I'm spending a lot more time at home, and when all of us are being encouraged to stay home, and when turning inward is kind of on the agenda, I sit with my stones more. I meditate with them more. And the first thing I noticed on one of these recent days when things were feeling very strange is that when I held, well, actually I was asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, and my hamster brain was going and going and going because of all the things to think about the pandemic, and what if this and what if that. And I thought, boy, how am I ever going to get back to sleep? And then I remembered, oh right, I have my Rosafia stone on the night table. I think I'll get it. This is the very first Rosafia I ever found, and this is the one I sleep with. And bring it in, cuddle it up to my heart, and do that breathing invitation and offer that I was talking about. When I did that a few nights ago, I felt the greatest surge of loving energy between myself and the Rosafia stone that I've ever experienced. And I've experienced quite a few of those moments, but there's something going on where that presence seemed more powerful than I've ever known it to be. And this, to me, was A, big surprise, and B, very promising thing. The next thing was, I tried it with one of my phenakite crystals, the grandmother phenakite. And I had only stood touching that crystal the next day for just a few seconds, and my whole body seemed to fill with light and the presence of that being. Again, the most powerful I've ever felt it. So I'm thinking now to say to you, another aspect of what may be going on is that Sophia may actually be waking up in matter. The stone beings may be more conscious and more present. Maybe it's an offer across the chasm of aid to us. Maybe it is that this is the time of awakening for matter itself and the earth itself. And it may be that on the other side of this initiation, there's a new consciousness in which we feel not isolated as human beings have felt in many ways for a long time, but connected with everything profoundly, deeply, lovingly, joyfully, in a way that we've never known. So I feel this, and I want to communicate that to you as what I sense as the promise of the time. And it goes with everything I said before about how breaking things down opens up the opportunity for new patterns. So what I want to encourage you who love stones as I do to do is meditate with your stones more. Invite them in. Offer your love and relationship. Think of them as beings if you would like to experiment with that kind of imagining. And notice what your inner experience is like when you do that. Because I believe that, personally, that alchemy is coming into its own right now, in the sense that partnership with spiritual consciousnesses that are not ourselves, the soul of the world, the stone beings, other spirit helpers, like the shamanic spirit helpers, all of that is, I think, getting magnified. And it happens in times of distress and difficulty. The spiritual world, if we take a step toward it, it'll take 9 steps towards us, so I believe. So I want to offer you that to encourage you to use some of your inward time at home to do this interesting experimentation. And now the last thing I want to talk to you about today is an answer to a question some friends have asked me of. And the question was, Robert, what stones are you working with yourself right now during the pandemic to support you? So I'm working with 3. I meditated on that, and I got a very clear feeling about what the 3 stones were and how and that they would work synergistically with one another if I used all 3 at the same time. So I'm doing that. And the 3 stones are Rosophia, which I've showed you, which I say is the stone of Sophia, a stone of the heart. The stone we call Healerite, which is a green serpentine from the United States, special one to me, and white azestulite. So the way that I'm working with them is I'm doing 2 things. I'm sleeping with one of each, just under the pillow, small ones, and I'm also wearing a necklace of 3 of these. And I should say something about what each one is about according to my ideas. And first, before I do, I'll put out the note of, I guess you could call it a disclaimer, but what I'm saying is this. I do not mean for anyone to believe that working with these stones or any stones will provide immunity from the virus, and I don't think, and I'm not trying to tell you that they will cure the virus if you get it. What I am saying is that they provide spiritual support, and that on a soul level, that's important. So, and this is my belief. It's not a scientifically established fact, so you need to decide for yourself how you feel about those things, whether it's with these stones or any stones. Okay? So, having said that, the way I view Healerite from the intuitive work I've done with it is that this stone carries what I would call the divine blueprint of well-being for the human subtle body. The subtle body is the soul body. It has a relationship to the physical body, and it has a relationship to our spiritual spark of divinity, and it kind of is in between the two. That's my view about the subtle body. I believe that the energy that comes from what you might call the subtle body or the being of Healerite offers a pattern of well-being that our own subtle body can resonate with. And this is not something that none of these work just because you have them. I believe you need to engage them in the way I was talking about. Like, ask them to help you with spiritual support during this time. Invite them in. Offer them your friendship, whether it's Healerite or the other two or all three together. Okay, so Healerite, as I say, it's the divine blueprint of well-being for the subtle body. White Azeztulite. White Azeztulite is the stone that I view as the stone of spiritual light, carrying the frequencies of the light of the great central sun, which is, I picture the great central sun as the spiritual sun at the core of the universe that's holographically present everywhere. So in other words, it's not a literal sun in the universe. It's a spiritual sun that you can find it. It is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So Azeztulite seems to resonate and offer a connection to that energy of the central sun, which I view as that divine spark in everything. And I've traveled inwardly in meditation to the great central sun, and it appears as a star. And being in its presence fills one with a kind of ecstasy and light. So Azeztulite's mission, as I view it spiritually, is to bring that light into us in the subtle body all the way down to the cellular level. And again, I'm not talking about the physical body, although I feel that the physical body has a relationship with the subtle body or the soul body. Okay? So the Azeztulite is bringing in the light. Rose Sophia. Rose Sophia is what I view as the stone of Sophia, the stone of the soul of the world, the divine feminine wisdom, love, beauty, and harmony that we experience being on earth. So when I say it is that, what I mean is that this stone takes me to that place when I tune into it. And the experience I have with it and what its function would be in terms of spiritual support now is to help us not be overcome by anxiety and also help us to be grounded. This is very much a stone of the earth's love reaching up, in my view, and it reaches right up through our feet into our heart and sends beautiful curving energies all through and around our heart. So I love Rose Sophia for that reason. And that's why it's the stone I sleep with, because it's calming to me, and it's when I have anxiety or when I have tension or when I have my mind going round and round too much, it soothes me and helps me quiet down and be in my heart. And sometimes, like the other night when I talked about it, or talked about what happened to me the other night, another aspect of what occurred after I felt that great surge of love was all night long from then on, there was kind of a conversation going on between my heart and the Rose Sophia, which I felt as an energy exchange. And, my brain could observe that much, but it didn't know what my heart and the stone were saying to each other. It just made me feel like there was a conversation happening. So, all right, you've stayed with me this long, or if you've stayed with me this long, I want to tell you that I want to help. I want to try to offer, in the way that I can offer help to people, I want to do so. So my idea and the offer I want to make, and I'll make it through my company, Heaven and Earth, is that for anybody who wants them, I'll give away for free a piece of Rose Sophia, a piece of Healerite, and a piece of White Azeztulite. And there's, I don't want to be paid for the stones. We ask that you pay for the shipping. which is $5. Normally these 3 stones that I've showed you, if we weighed them out and added them up from what they sell for in my catalog, they're about $40 or $50 for the 3. And we've got a few thousand of them. So for those of you who tune into stones and who want to have whatever spiritual support can come to you through these 3 types that I've tuned into and that I'm working with, all you have to do is get in touch with my company, Heaven and Earth, and they'll send them to you. So it's in the United States. The postage part of it that you have to pay is $5. If you're overseas, you can still get the stones for free, but my staff there would have to let you know what the mailing cost is, because it will depend on where you are. But I definitely, from my heart, want to offer this to you. And I would recommend trying them in meditation. Hold the 3 of them in your hands, hold them over your heart, as I like to do, and hold them all together as you do that. Invite and meet each of the stone beings as you do that. Ask for spiritual support during this time of crisis. Offer your love and gratitude. Gratitude is a really important energy to remember all the things and people that we're grateful for, and also to engage in this co-creation with the stone beings and with Sophia. The natural love and gratitude that we would feel, realizing that we're in partnership with spiritual beings who wish us well. That's the gratitude I'm talking about. So I'll tell you the phone number in the United States for my company. It is 802-476-4775, and they're on the East Coast. And so far, our staff is all working, and we're taking really good precautions to make sure that everybody stays safe, which I encourage you to do too. In addition to the phone number, you can send us an email, and that would be to heavenandearth@earthlink.net. So again, I'll say that: Heaven and Earth, HEAVENANDEARTH at Earthlink, EARTHLINK.net. .net. And if you do that, then you just send an email requesting the free stones that I mentioned in this video. You'll need to deal with the $5 through a credit card or something. And if you want to put that in your email, you can, or if not, the staff will reply to you and it'll get arranged. Other way would be just to go to our website, because this offer will also be up on the Heaven and Earth website. And the website is www.heavenandearthjewelry.com. That's just and I'll put it in the information below the video, but it's all spelled out as one word: Heaven and Earth Jewelry, all as one word, .com. So again, this offer will be up on the homepage of the website, and that's what I hope will help sustain those of you who are stone lovers through the time and through the initiation we're going through together with the earth. There are other things that you can get besides the raw stones that we do sell. This necklace type thing with the 3 stones on a cord. I tried to do other things that could be very inexpensive, or at least one other thing that you could wear, and that's this. So that's $25 if you want something like that, and these are polished pieces. Again, that's probably $60 or something like that normally. But I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to give stones away. And then if you want something more than what we're giving away, We do have different things on our website. We have, big pieces of all three of these stones. And of course, it's a business, so we do sell things, and we need to pay our people and just get by in the world, just like we all do. But I want to make sure that I stress that the intention of this whole video and the intention of offering the free stones is to be in community with you. The people who are the stone lovers in the world are my community. It's given my life meaning to do this work. And I feel as though I'm doing in the world what I should be doing, and that uses best the talents and abilities and my desires that are a part of who I am. So it was very sad for me to have to cancel the Alchemy of Stones workshop, but my intention now is to do more videos, talk about some of the things that the workshop was going to have in it, which I've always intended to do anyway. And I'm going to, in my next video, my plan is to talk to you about what I call photonics, which is a way of working remotely using stones to spiritually support and benefit other people, pets, pieces of land, the whole earth. It's pretty exciting stuff. And we'll talk about how I picture that and what you can try at home while you're spending time at home. So many blessings from my heart to you, and thank you for being a part of the community of those who love the stones and love the earth. Thank you so much.